Greetings. My name is Dr. Jill Burgett, and I'm professor of music at University of Northern Colorado. I would like to welcome you to the DuPage Symphony Orchestra's 2022-23 concert season. For our second concert of the season, the DSO presents Up Close and Personal, Mexico and Spain. Our featured composers for this concert are the French composer Edouard Lalo and three Mexican composers, Carlos Chavez, Jose Moncayo, and Arturo Marquez. When listening to music, it's helpful to attach our listening to schönft, sound, harmony, rhythm, melody, form, and timbre, an acronym coined by musicologist Jan Leroux, schönft. There are three primary influences on the music of Mexico: indigenous Aztecan influence, Spanish influence through colonization, and African influence as a result of the slave trade. During Mexico's colonial period, the role of sacred music became the primary source of music making. Franciscan missionaries taught music to the Aztec people as an aid in the process of conversion. Franciscan missionary Pedro de Gante opened the first music school in 1523, where plain chant and instrument making were taught. Liturgical music by Spanish polyphonic composers, as well as the archives from cathedrals in Sevilla and Toledo, were sent over to Mexico City and Puebla to aid in this process. As the music of Mexico shifted from a less sacred to a more secular approach in the 19th century, opera flourished and thrived as a predominant genre of music performed, ranging from Spanish origin works to Italian opera. However, there was a profound shift in Mexico's artistic life and culture following the Mexican Revolution, as a sense of nationalist pride spilled throughout the country. Also deemed to be the Aztec Renaissance, the nationalist music began to draw from Aztecan music practices and instruments to blend cohesively with contemporary compositional styles, spearheaded by Carlos Chavez. What is the Mexican sound? Characteristics of this movement will typically combine themes drawn from both Mexican folk music and Aztecan influences. Mexican folk music introduces elements such as the use of varied time signatures and rhythms, parallel melodies, and 1-5-7 chordal progressions, whereas the Aztecan melodic modes and pentatonic scale tones add a distinct sonority to the mix. The synthesis of these sounds is what creates the unique and eclectic Mexican sound. The influence of Carlos Chavez on 20th century music was revolutionary by implementing indigenous music into his musical compositions and teaching methods. 4 of his very young students would continue the tradition of their teacher and eventually would be dubbed Grupo de los Cuatro, or Group of Four, as a deliberate reference to the Mighty Five in Russia and Les Six in France. They would eventually become some of the leading artists in a new generation of Mexican music. And now, without further ado, let's dive into the exquisite music of Spain and Mexico. Edouard Lalo was born in Lille, France in 1823 of Spanish descent. In 1839, he moved to Paris to study at the Paris Conservatory, where he published his first piece for violin and piano at the age of 25. Throughout his career, he dabbled in many genres, but is most notable for his orchestral and chamber works. He died at the age of 69. However, his legacy lived on through his many masterpieces, including Symphonie Espagnole, which was deemed to be one of his most prominent pieces for violinist repertoire today. Lalo was a prolific composer, known for his Germanic sound influences, strong melodies, and colorful orchestration. Symphonie Espagnole in D minor was composed in 1874. Although the piece is called a Spanish symphony, Lalo's flamboyant work is considered more of a violin concerto by musicians today. We will find as we listen to this piece that Lalo, although a French composer, paid tribute to his Spanish heritage by integrating Spanish idioms throughout the work. The piece is composed during a time period when Spanish-themed music came into vogue in Europe. The legacy left behind by this magnificent piece contributes to it being one of Lalo's most often played works. It is also known to have had profound influence on the creation of Tchaikovsky's violin concerto in D major, as well as Bizet's Carmen. Melodically, you can expect to hear the Spanish Phrygian mode scale used throughout this piece. Rhythmically, listen for the 2 and 3 alternating rhythms and lots of syncopation and meter change. Harmonically, you will hear a descending chord sequence that tends to align with Spanish characteristics: A minor, G, F, E. You will want to listen for the influences, melodically, of the pentatonic scale and the Spanish gypsy scale. You'll want to listen for the habanero rhythms in these works. Here's an example of the alternating triple and duple rhythms. The work consists of 5 movements, differing from the normative 4-movement structure found in a typical symphony. However, occasionally the intermezzo or interlude is omitted to give the piece a feel closer to the 4-movement structure. Starting with the first movement, we hear key elements that reflect Spanish characteristics, drawn from the flamenco in the beginning line of the violin, a minor modality similar to the Spanish gypsy scale, descending minor passages, and the triplet duple rhythmic motif. In contrast, Movement 2 presents a more playful feel at a faster tempo, mimicking a seguidilla or a light piece in triple meter, with the violin taking center stage amongst the light orchestral backing and pizzicato or plucked accompaniment to support the soloists. Movement 3 depicts a short presentation between acts, or an intermezzo, and combines elements from the previous 2 movements. The harmonic structure displays a minor modality supported by a heavy orchestral texture. We are also seeing elements of flamenco, some call and response, slow tango rhythmic patterns, habanera rhythms, and triple-duple patterns. Finally, the general sound structure highlights virtuosic flares in the violin, including frequent glissandi. The fourth andante movement is a little bit more traditional, more similar to what other European composers were composing at the time. We do hear the Spanish gypsy scale modalities. The final rondo movement is at a fast, quick-paced tempo and contains some bravura figures. You'll feel strong syncopation built into the theme in 6/8 time. Although Carlos Chavez did not receive formal compositional training, he did take it upon himself to study the music of great composers. And his music was profoundly influenced through his travel throughout various areas of Mexico. The resolve of the Mexican Revolution in 1921 brought forth political officials who became strong advocates for the arts with a specific focus placed on the indigenous cultures of Mexico. It was here that Chavez established himself as one of the first exponents of Mexican nationalist music, with the creation of his first two ballets highlighting Aztec themes throughout. Chavez's legacy crowns him as the first composer in his country to attain worldwide recognition. Chavez's musical output is indeed impressive. However, he was most well known for his two symphonic works, one of which is Sinfonia India, composed in 1935. Both of these symphonic works incorporated indigenous themes as part of his involvement in the nationalistic movement. Although Chavez wrote 6 symphonies, his second, Sinfonia India, has been the most popular. A nod to his unwavering support of Mexican nationalism, the work creatively incorporates both native and non-native percussion instruments, including traditional native jockey percussion instruments. Here we can see the instrumentation of Sinfonia India, and you see under the percussion instruments the combination of both native and non-native percussion instruments in the scoring. Here we see just a few examples of some of the indigenous instruments scored into Sinfonia India. We have the water gourd drum, the tepanazli, which is a log drum, a rattle instrument called gruhuschen, made of deer's hooves, and the tenabody rattle instrument made from cocoons. The structure of Sinfonia India depicts the music from 3 different tribes of Mexico, and it is set up with an intro, then an A, B, and C theme, and then wraps up with the finale. Here's the introduction to the work. It itself has 3 very short themes compressed very quickly into that introduction. Theme A is based on a melody from the Huicholes of Nayarit. It is presented in the oboe and the violins. Theme B heralds from the Yaqui of Sonora. It's a duet between the E-flat clarinet and the B-flat clarinet, accompanied by water gourd or tenor drum. Theme C actually also comes from the Yaqui of Sonora. We have the intervals of the perfect fourths set against the melodic line in the French horn. And here we also have examples of pentatonic scale. The piece wraps up with a lively finale taken from Tiburon Island, Baja California. You'll see that we are in 6/8 time. It's almost like a lively jig dance movement. And you see that the percussion is also rapidly playing 8th notes in 6/8 time. The legacy and impact that Chavez left behind can be seen not only in the continuous popularity of his music, but also lasting impression that it has paved a new generation of Mexican composers to express their musical creativity. One of the students taken under his wing while attending the Conservatorio Nacional de Música claimed Chavez had a profound influence on him. This young composer and member of El Grupo de los Cuatros soon grew into a prolific career of his own, becoming one of the next generation legacies of the Mexican national music movement, and his name was Jose Moncayo. As one of Chavez's young proteges, it's easy to recognize the sustained echo of Mexican nationalism in Moncayo's music, as he implements traditional folk dance idioms. However, Moncayo continues to evolve and elevate the movement with avant-garde tendencies, including the use of diatonic and polytonal harmonies, parallel chords, and impressionist orchestral timbres, providing a rich array of colors to experience throughout each work. He was profoundly influenced by Chavez, one of the founding members of Grupo de los Cuatro, and incidentally did have the opportunity to study with Aaron Copland. Moncayo's musical output is indeed impressive, making a huge impression on the musical world with his publication of his composition Huapango. In 1949, Moncayo participated in a competition in Mexico commemorating Chopin and submitted Tierra de Temporal, which would go on to be chosen as one of the 3 winning pieces. It is based loosely on a story, Tierra, translated by the title Land, by Gregorio Lopez y Fuentes. The story paints a troubling picture of events endured by the poor during the Mexican Revolution. Moncayo's Tierra de Temporal can be translated either as land of seasonal rain or land of the temporary. It's often referred to as Moncayo's masterpiece. Differing translations of the title of this piece can point to multiple levels of interpretation. To some, it is the symbolic description of scenery through composition. To others, it relates to the transience of seasonal workers moving from place to place during the ever-changing seasons. The beautifully descriptive Tierra de Temporal structure is ABA form, which is also referred to as 3-part ternary form, and within each of the larger structures there are 2 thematic groups separated by transitional material. You'll have the opportunity to hear the music, Tierra de Temporal, performed at the upcoming concert. And now, moving on to our next composer, Arturo Marquez. Arturo Marquez was born in 1950 in Alamos, Mexico, into a multi-generational musical household. He was exposed to many types of musical styles, including traditional music, waltzes, and polkas. One particular style, known as salon music, would leave a lasting impression that would influence his later repertoire. In a recent interview, Marquez recalls his eclectic musical journey as, "My adolescence was spent listening to Javier Solís, sounds of mariachi, the Beatles, Doors, Carlos Santana, and Chopin." To this day, Arturo Marquez has an extensive musical output of 52 works within a wide range of genres, beginning in 1981 and leading up to his recently published work in 2020. Similar to Chavez and Moncayo, Marquez incorporates traditional forms and styles native to Mexican folk music into his own contemporary compositional style. His danzón pieces are heavily influenced by the Veracruz region of Mexico, known for integrating Spanish dances such as the fandango with traditional indigenous rhythms, as well as ballroom dances like the cha-cha and mambo, along with traditional Mexican dances. Danzón No. 2 was one of the first works Marquez composed in his newfound fusion dance style, skyrocketing his career into worldwide popularity. Danzón No. 2 is one of 8 danzones composed by Marquez. Marquez frequently implements the use of solo instruments in Danzón No. 2 and often creatively pairs them together with one another in an attempt to depict 2 dancers moving together across the dance floor. Danzón No. 2 is one large movement that is broken down into 6 individual themes. Theme A emerges as a clarinet solo, set against an undulating ostinato in the clave, playing a duple-triple alternating rhythm. Theme B has the oboe entering, playing in mixed meters. 4/4, 6/8, 4/4, 6/8. And now we have the wonderful theme C that emerges as a bright and lively tango. And theme D appears in the strings as the excitement builds. Theme E is presented in the woodwinds, punctuated heavily with brass and percussion. In its mixed meter presentation, theme F emerges in the solo trumpet. And finally, we see the reemergence and development of several previous themes, as if beginning to mimic the final moments of a ballroom competition, twisting and twirling into an energetically charged grand finale that pulls out all of the stops as the piece draws in great applause. Up close and personal, Mexico and Spain, DuPage Symphony Orchestra's second concert of the season. We hope that you will join us.